So this is our presentation on Austria Hungary, and we'll be covering the politics, society, and economy towards the outbreak of World War I by
Angel,
Jaden,
Samaya,
and Lauren. So here is Austria-Hungary's political structure, the dual monarchy. Austria-Hungary's political tensions really began after losing the Austro-Prussian War in 1866. That loss forced Emperor Franz Joseph I to reorganize the empire through the Ausgleich, or Compromise of 1867, creating the dual monarchy. This system tried to balance Austria and Hungary's power, but sparked intense nationalism, especially among other ethnic groups, which Samaya will explain later. After 1866, Austria-Hungary lost its leadership role and began competing for influence in Central and Eastern Europe. This power struggle was one of the earliest signs of the rivalries that would eventually lead to World War I. In 1908, the Bosnian crisis became a turning point. Austria-Hungary annexed Bosnia and Herzegovina, angering Serbia and Russia, who saw it as a threat to Slavic unity. From that point, the Balkans were filled with tension. Even alliances like the Triple Alliance, Hungary still felt threatened. By the 1900s, fear of Serbia's growing power and nationalist movements made the empire unstable, and this instability set the stage for assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914.
After the creation of the dual monarchy, the empire was ethnically fragmented. With no single majority, nationalist movements pushed for self-rule. For example, Czechs wanted autonomy in Bohemia, while Serbs, Croats, and Slavs sought independence, often supported by Serbia and Russia. The government's failure to address these demands caused constant political instability, showing the ineffectiveness of multinational empires in an age of nationalism. Economically, Austria-Hungary experienced rapid industrialization from the 1860s to 1914, with extensive railway construction driven partly by military priorities. This reveals a mindset focused on expansion and defense, reflecting the tension and insecurity within the empire. However, economic growth was uneven. The industrialized West contrasted sharply with the agrarian poorer East, creating regional inequality that worsened ethnic divisions. Even the military reflected these factors, split into Austrian, Hungarian, and imperial divisions, which struggled with communication and cohesion. Ultimately, these ethnic and economic tensions made the empire politically fragile. When Serbian nationalism rose, Austria-Hungary's leaders viewed war as a means to preserve power and unity. In this way, the empire's internal instability was a significant underlying cause of its decision to go to war and a key factor in igniting World War I.
As important as the long-term diplomatic and internal factors are in causing World War I, the short-term impacts must be acknowledged too. The most commonly accepted trigger for the Great War lies in this category, and that would be the assassination of heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, by Serbian nationalists in June 28 of 1914. The timing of this assassination was particularly important, because as Lauren mentioned, it was during a time of intense diplomatic tension in Europe, especially for Serbia and Austria-Hungary in the Balkans. During the precarious time, an attack on the future heir from a Serbian nationalist clearly seems as a valid cause for war. Though, for Austria-Hungary's purposes, that war was not really meant to break out into World War I, but more on that later. On July 5th, the empire asked for German support, which it received through something called the blank check. That essentially promised German support to the allied Austria-Hungary in an attack against Serbia. At this point, it's important to recall the complex set of alliances in place in the European nations at the time. The two major ones were the Triple Entente with France, Britain, and Russia, and the Triple Alliance with Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. Their interaction with Germany is particularly significant, as it can be argued as the initial set-off of what can be referred to as the first push of the domino system of alliances. All the nations were both positively and negatively connected to other nations. Their initial collaboration changed what was a small war and turned it into World War I. Later, on July 23rd, the empire sent a purposely humiliating and provocative ultimatum to Serbia, who surprisingly met most of the demands, except for one that threatened its sovereignty. Nonetheless, the empire declared war on Serbia. All in all, the timed assassination, the blank check, and alliances all caused the initial attack to form into World War I.
So what exactly is the most significant factor? The distinction is difficult, especially considering all the nations and possible factors in Austria-Hungary alone. There are many broader arguments, including the sleepwalkers theory, which blames the complex web of alliances and relations instead of a single power. There are even narrow theories blaming nations other than Austria-Hungary. However, for the sake of this case study on the empire, only the following two perspectives will be considered. One, that the empire initiated the attack as a result of long-term buildup from internal instability and external threat. It was a defense to maintain integrity. Two, that the empire was a part of an offensive expansionist plan that was prepped by internal instability but caused by the short-term effect of Germany's support after the assassination. The second perspective portrays Austria-Hungary on the offensive side, noting that the short-term effects like the 1914 blank check agreement with Germany established with the confidence to reclaim dominance in a time of instability, which then encouraged Vienna's attack on Serbia, also known as the beginning of World War I. The attack wasn't a defense, it was a German-influenced decision to restore the empire's image in the Balkans. However, in light of the first perspective, which also emphasizes the economic and diverse instability, the second perspective is less significant. Both perspectives can at least agree on the empire's instability, which means Austria-Hungary's decision for the attack had long been forming before Germany's blank checking influence. It began way before, when the empire's economic and regional differences boiled into conflict. The black check and German intervention confirmed and supported the attack on the side. It didn't actually cause the war to happen. Other long-term tensions with military losses and global power struggles, especially the 1908 conflict with Serbia, further solidified Austria-Hungary's tense and defensive stance.
And that concludes our presentation, so here is our works cited page.